I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Andy Nelson.
Welcome to the next reel. When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
The most dangerous game is over. Those animals I hunted, now I know how they felt. Did you feel the fear?
You were amazing.
My voice quavered in the
Oscar
at the end there. There we go. The most dangerous game. I think this was new to both of us.
This was a series I put together. I thought it'd be fun talking about movies with people hunting people. I am not sure what drew me to that particular topic, but I thought there are a lot of interesting movies that tackle that. We talked about some in our member pre-show chat as we talked about great hunts in film. But I figured if we're going to talk about this as a series, that we have to start with the very first adaptation of the original short story. Richard Connell wrote the short story in 1924, The Most Dangerous Game, and this is the first adaptation of it. And so, neither of us had seen it before.
Short story?
I didn't end up reading it. Did you?
No, I didn't. But I feel like I should have, because this movie clocks in at 63 minutes.
Nice and tight, yes.
It's barely a Law and Order episode. And and I feel like after watching this movie, it's probably going to be one of the best adaptations of a short story we've ever had. Like, it got exactly 63 minutes out of a short story. That's what it feels like to me. So I'm interested in reading it. I just didn't have time to get to it. It's
as short as it may be, right?
It's as short as it may. Yeah, right. I had 9 other movies to watch this weekend. I just didn't. I don't remember how to read in that context. So here we are with the movie, and I would like to start with the setup of the film. We start on a boat.
Yes,
and it's interesting because we've got a bunch of guys hanging out on this boat, going to this place to hunt, with one of the great hunters in existence at the time, by reputation, Bob Rainsford.
Bob
Rainsford. His name?
Yeah.
Anyway, Bob is one of the great hunters of some renown. They're all going on a trip, and by the setup,
are they going on a trip or are they coming back?
Oh, you're right. Maybe they're coming back. What's interesting about it is it feels to me like we're setting up a different movie. Like, this could be a shipwreck movie, a Port in the Storm kind of a movie. Like, they kind of go all in on the vibe of all of these people that are hanging out together. And then we immediately lose them all and the boat in what is, for 1932, a fantastic crash. And then we get into a completely different movie.
Yes.
Do you share that? Like, what was this? How'd the setup hit you?
Well, I like the setup. I thought that was actually kind of a fun way to kind of kick things off, because it really surprised me that we have this setup for the story that really ends up being nothing more than exposition to just set up our main character, because all these other characters are killed. And we just have to know this guy is a great hunter. And also we're getting a sense that something is awry with the fact that these two guide lights, these lights on these buoys have been, there's something wrong. They're not in place where they should be. And the captain is very concerned. The owner of the boat doesn't seem to care at all. And so they follow along through these channel lights, and of course leads them right into the rocks where the boat is destroyed. And so it's setting up a sense of something. I don't know. Maybe it played differently in 1932. Maybe it played differently for people who had already known how the story went. But it felt to me pretty obvious that there was somebody abusing this. Also, we're walking into a film. We know what's going to be happening. But I don't know. The yacht owner seemed like his disregard. I'm like, I don't know. I feel like you should listen to the captain maybe. Yeah. No, I didn't. He was... the captain, I felt like deserved more credit for sure. I think that's really true. There is something about the level, and it's not very long. We're not on the boat for very long, but there's something about the level of investment that we get into meeting these guys so briefly that it just,
maybe it's that when we're on a boat, I feel like I'm going to get a certain kind of movie, and we don't stay on the boat long enough. Like I want a boat movie. But anyhow, we end up on as a shipwreck, and we have a survivor, and that's Bob, our hero, the great hunter.
Okay. Yeah, and I want to go back to this shipwreck question for you, because I have a question for you, because I didn't read the original story, but I did read the synopsis of it. And so I pose to you this question. In the original story, so he's our hunter, our character Rainsford, he's actually heading down to the Amazon to go on a hunt. They're passing this island that is notorious as like a place that's evil and, all sorts of dark things. They always have these stories about these places. And while he's there, he hears gunshots, and he runs to the deck and looks over the railing and slips and falls overboard, and then ends up having to swim to this island. And that's kind of how the story is set up. So the boat, I don't know if they actually end up pursuing or like trying to figure out what happened to him. I'm not exactly sure, but I am curious, like, how that would play for you if that had been the setup instead.
Right off the dome, I think I like the shipwreck better, because there is a certain point of no returnness to it.
Yeah.
If he slips and falls, there is room for a redemptive rescue. And
Right.
I like the idea of sort of burning our bridges behind us for this movie, for Bob. Like there's no way back. I think the movie made a good choice.
I do too. And see, that's the thing is like, I mean, I don't think it bothered me as much as it bothered you, but I definitely prefer the way that we went in the film, like having this shipwreck and, having I think we have 3 people survive the shipwreck, and then immediately 2 of them are eaten by sharks.
Yes.
So all we have is Rainsford, who manages to swim to the island. I thought it worked. Like it set up the story in an interesting way where it gave us a shift. You could argue it's like Psycho in that, where, we set up one story, but then immediately are shifted into something else.
That's a great comparison.
Well, thank you.
Okay. Yeah. No, you've convinced me. That's a winner.
Yeah.
So now we're on the island for the rest of, the movie, and we meet our benefactor, Zaroff, who seems like a nice enough guy. He's a little obsessed with hunting.
Well, and also he seems a little strange. I mean, he has built rebuilt essentially a Portuguese fortress to be his home on this island that seems like a very dangerous place, because as we learn, people keep shipwrecking nearby. And we have a brother-sister pair who are also here because their ship had wrecked. And so we've got these 3 people now staying with Count Zaroff, the other thing that never comes up when Bob first makes it to the island is like, I mean, he mentions that the ship wrecked. You're in the water. How does he know no one else survived? I mean, yes, he knows there was a big explosion. Certainly some people could have died, but
Right.
they don't ever say, well, we should go out and look and see if anyone else survived. He never brings up, how can I get off this island? Like, he just seems very content at like, oh, I'm here. You've got a great place. Hey, I'm going to change clothes and chill for a while.
Yes, there is no agita about what just happened to him at all. And let's just say, on the flip side of that, Zaroff is remarkably hospitable. And it just makes me think back to this era where wayward strangers show up at your door and you offer them bedclothes and a martini. Just come and stay as long as you need kind of hospitality. And there are a few people that I have in my list that I would offer bedclothes and a martini if they just show up at my house.
Especially strangers. Like,
Yeah.
well, I guess that's your point is like, I mean, there are plenty of friends I have who, if they showed up, I'm like, yeah, come on in. But yeah.
Wait, you're here and you need bedclothes? Of course.
I mean, I guess maybe it's different if you live by yourself on an island. Like, you could see the person as like maybe they're just desperate.
Yeah. But he also has all of his Cossack roommates.
Yeah. Yeah. Cossack roommates who I don't know, and I know your wife speaks Russian. I don't know if you watched any of this with her to see if they were actually speaking Russian or if they were making up their own fake language.
I didn't, but that's really good. I should make her watch some scenes.
Yeah. Just to check. Yeah.
Just to check, yeah. So anyhow, we have an incredibly hospitable home here.
Yes.
And all of that we find out is grooming for the hunt. And we get through this fantastic scene where Leslie Banks, apparently half of his face was paralyzed. And so he used it to be all sinister. Did you see this?
No, interesting.
That's what makes his face so kind of off kilter and sinister, because when he raises his eyebrow and opens one eye, the other one doesn't. It's because half his face is, I think, somehow injured.
In real life, you're saying?
In real life, yeah.
Okay, because I know in the movie, half his face also had been injured because he had that huge scar down his forehead from, I can't remember what it was that he said had attacked him, but...
like a rhino or something. Yeah, that was the Zaroff injury, but Leslie Banks was also injured and had some challenges with numbness. Here it is. He suffered a facial wound during World War I, which left one side of his face partially paralyzed. He used this to his advantage, exaggerating expressions on one side to enhance Zaroff's sinister look. So, go Leslie Banks. That's really method.
Yeah.
So anyhow, he has a fantastic sequence where we get to see we get to hear his obsession with the hunt, and he uses some really strong language to sort of exert his zealotry that God made him for the hunt, that his finger was meant for the trigger. And this is one of the things about the movie that I think is fascinating, that it really deals with the morality of hunting. And hearing Zaroff explain his perspective from the perspective of somebody who is a zealous hunter, I see how the story is a thought experiment that asks us to address the morality of hunting. And I think the film explores that nicely for 1932.
Well, it is an interesting angle, and that was something interesting that I did read about the original short story, is that Richard Connell took the popularity at the time of these big game hunts in Africa and South America, where wealthy Americans would travel to do this. And I mean, they still do largely in many capacities, but at the time it was becoming more and more popular. And so it was a great idea to kind of take that into this story here and adapt it. But also, as you said, give us this perspective of the hunter as a figure of power who sees it not just as a means to take down an animal to use for food or other supplies like the indigenous people would do, but use it as a source of demonstration of power. Right? It's not just I'm going to kill this bison to feed my family over the winter months and provide the skins to use and everything. It's all about, I want to kill this animal so that I can mount its head on my wall to demonstrate I am more powerful than it. That really kind of becomes like he is a precursor to Craven the Hunter, wearing the giant lion head on his own chest as a demonstration of power.
Yeah, right. And that distortion is, obviously central to the story itself, because he's taken that, and made it an expression of power and dominance over human, because he can't get enough of a fight from the beast anymore. And therein we find our central premise that he is actually grooming his guests. There is no way out. They can't get away. He says there's no boat. Boats never come, but in fact he has a boat. And he ties them up in his trophy room for a couple of days, and then gives them the option. You can, if you can stay alive until dawn, you can go free. and no one has ever done that.
Right. No. And we learn, and it plays in an interesting way. It's not like what I thought was nice. I mean, I was, talking about Bob's lack of, emphasis about the fact that he had just been in a wreck, concern about his shipmates, concern about getting back, like all of that. But we do have an interesting scene that plays out after we meet the brother and sister. This is Eve and Martin. There is this conversation. Martin is drunk off his ass and gets Count Zaroff to play the piano, something that apparently Zaroff loves to do. And while that was happening, and I thought this was interesting, we have this scene where Eve pulls Bob to the side and they sit down, and she's kind of trying to give him clues as to what's actually going on. Like, there's more to this guy than just some friendly stranger. And I thought that actually played in an interesting way, because it leads pretty quickly to that setup that you said of him saying, "I'm going to hunt you." But I liked that we actually have this moment here. Apparently, they're additions to the story, to the film. They weren't in the original story. But what I liked about it is it gives us this sense that at least Eve is. Martin, we don't think is actually concerned about anything. He's just drunk and happy to drink. But Eve is sensing something else is going on here. We were shipwrecked with two other people. They have been invited to Count Zaroff's trophy room to check it out and have never returned. And so, and he says, "Oh, they're out, hunting, or they're doing something else." Like he keeps having these excuses. But Eve is starting to get suspicious. The fact that the boat that he has, and that's the first time in the film that it's mentioned a way off of this island. Right. He has a boat, but it's being worked on. But I heard it coming back the other morning, so I know it's actually working. Like, we're starting to get these clues peppered in here in this conversation that something is amiss. And I think that was an important element to have. To a certain extent, because the film is only 63 minutes, that shift from that conversation to Zaroff saying, "You know what, we're gonna go hunting," is it's a pretty quick turn. I mean, Martin is the one who's taken next down to the trophy room after Eve and Bob are sent up to their rooms, and and it plays fast. But I like that we have that, because we're starting to get a sense of more at play here before he kind of comes in and announces it.
No, I'm glad you brought that up, because, well, first of all, you're absolutely right. All of that happens in their first sort of drink, right? Yeah. That first night, we get everything. We get the introducing the brother and sister. We get I'm going to play the piano. We get the what amounts to sort of exposition dump, right? I mean, but it doesn't play that way to me. Like, we need to get some of this information, and her anxiety is right on. That the movie is so short makes it feel rushed. Like, that conversation in a 2-hour movie wouldn't happen, I think, until almost the halfway point, right, where we get to meet the characters a little bit more thoroughly. But this it really moves us into the next phase, and I guess the next thing that feels like it moves fast is their relationship. As a result of this, we get some pretty of the time stereotypical gotta save the damsel in distress vibes from Bob, and she appears to fall for him very, very quickly in this movie in a way that is less believable, the transition, and yet by the end it's such a trope of the period that I'm sort of invested. What did you think of their relationship? Because it all starts obviously by the fire right then.
It starts right there. It plays. I guess it played fine to me. I mean, as far as like the relationship, it isn't necessarily portrayed as like a romantic one, although you do get a sense that there is a draw between them. There's a sense.
Thing. Yeah.
There's a sense of some that kind of cat and mouse pursuit of hunters and prey. You could say that there's a draw that they have of her to him in some capacity, playing with that. But I think that it does end up being a little more damsel in distress, which definitely felt of the time. Like, let's take a woman and put her in danger, to the point where, he chooses, Bob chooses to take her with him, right? To, the hunt is Count Zaroff hunting Bob, but Bob doesn't want to leave her behind and is concerned that, because I can't remember, was it Count Zaroff who'd said something about like, after his hunts, like there's a sense of kind of sexual needs. I can't remember if there's some allusion to something like that, but
he has that line. What was it? You haven't lived until you kill, then you love.
Yeah. Right.
That's the pinnacle of human experience.
Right. Which makes it seem like, okay, that's essentially Bob's cue to take Eve with him, because he's concerned that if something should happen to him, regardless, she's going to be left as the woman that Zaroff continues to use every time he returns from any hunt that he does. And so he takes her with him. Yeah, it does end up playing a little too much like, she's there as the vessel needed to get into trouble, because eventually she does end up getting caught by Zaroff and taken back to his place, right?
Yeah, and the line is, kill, then love. When you have known that, you will have known ecstasy. Now, I think it's interesting that so much of this is just like weirdly manifested love energy, right? Because Bob takes her, even though Zaroff, who has said nothing to indicate that he's not a nobleman on this particular adventure, right? That he would betray his word. He says, I never kill the female of the species.
Yeah, right.
Right. So he's not going to hurt her. He was never going to hurt her.
Right.
So why is Bob taking her if he doesn't have this sort of manifested emotion for her, right? He's attracted to her and wants to rescue her in some way. So that's the part that feels like I just don't understand it. The movie sets up a logic that he doesn't follow, and that's not an argument against him. It's that the movie set up an insufficient reason for her to go with him.
The only reason the only way I can take it is that he doesn't, I don't know if it's because of jealousy or protectiveness, but he doesn't want to leave her with a man who said, kill then love, and so I think he's read into it like he is going to take her as his new forced lover, essentially. Yeah. And so, not that if he ends up getting killed on the hunt, Zaroff's going to take her anyway. Like I don't know. Yeah, it just, that plays as an element that definitely feels the most forced of anything in the film.
Yeah. And the practical reason to have her go with him is that Fay Wray is delightful as an actress, and we need more of her on screen.
She's always fun to watch, and it does play very much like her King Kong counterpart again, where she is in a situation where she is the damsel in distress and just is needed to be there to look concerned and to scream when it's appropriate.
Right. And she's doing it on the same sets, the same jungle sets as King Kong. That's so funny.
With a lot of the same cast. It's her, Robert Armstrong, was it Noble Johnson, and I can't remember the fourth one. Steve Clement, is he the fourth one that was also in King Kong? And James Flavin. James Flavin is the fourth one. He was the first mate on the boat. So those four people.
Steve Clement was also in King Kong.
Was he?
He was the Witch King. Yep.
Oh, okay. There you go. So you get the same sets, you get some of the same cast. They're shooting it some of the same time, directed by some of the same people. Ernest B. Schoedsack and Miriam C. Cooper co-directed King Kong. Here we have Ernest B. Schoedsack co-directing with Irving Pichel, and Miriam Cooper is, I believe, handling some of the effects sequences. So yeah, it's very much kind of the same core group of people working on this for RKO to deliver both of these movies at the same time. Close time.
Close time, very, very close, and a similar vibe, right? When you look at sort of man versus beast, and King Kong exaggerates it in a different way, a different direction, but it's kind of the same story. Especially that we get right survival versus or survival and human instinct, and civilization versus the savage wilds, and ultimately their stories about power and control over fellow man in this one, and power and control over the wilds of nature, as crazy as it can be in King Kong. And I think that amuses me on some level, that these movies are sort of ideologically sowing the same song.
Yeah, that's definitely an interesting element there that you have with both of these stories, and the bestial nature of somebody on these hunts and drawn to the half-naked woman. Also, we should say this was pre-Hays Code, so as we have Fay Wray and Joel McCrea running around, they're both their clothing gets more and more ripped to shreds as they continue, and so it definitely felt of the era in that capacity.
Pre-prude.
Yes. No. But it plays well, and you're getting the just different elements of like the alcohol, the heavy drinking. Like, I guess we have a lot of heavy drinking in the era for sure, but everything about Zaroff was so sadistic and twisted that it played in such a fascinating way in the story, and it does. I don't know. I enjoyed that with this pre-Hays Code sort of story. You're getting things like a trophy room with heads floating in jars, or human heads mounted on walls. Like, some of that stuff was just great to play. Apparently, in the original cut of this film, there was more of that in that sequence where you had an actual like stuffed person, I think, included in the lineup of everything, mounted next to a tree, and another full body figure stuffed with the bodies of the two hunting dogs mounted in a death grip.
Wow.
Apparently, this film had several scenes that people would walk out on. It was too difficult for some people. One was the trophy room where you could see a head floating in the jar. A lot of people walked out. And the other is when Joel McCrea is getting attacked by Zaroff's men, and he takes one over his back and he breaks his back. He cracks it. And that was the second time people walked out. Pretty interesting, especially in a 63-minute film.
That was, I've got to say, that was a sequence that was, I thought, really interesting to demonstrate on film, the backbreaker. And to think of all of this stuff that makes people walk out, and then to think about The Substance, which I still haven't watched, but is next on my queue.
Oh, my goodness. Just wait.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Things they do on film.
Yeah.
In terms of the rest of the cast, I think we've covered them, right? I mean, there are the boys on the boat, but they die quickly. Anybody else that stands out? I mean, do we need to talk about Noble Johnson?
Well, we haven't really talked about Joel McCrea just as an actor before. I love watching Joel McCrea. He's always somebody worth checking out. I mean, he's been in so many great films. Sullivan's Travels and The Palm Beach Story are two great films he did with Preston Sturges. And then, of course, he was in like Ride the High Country and Hitchcock's Foreign Correspondent. He's just an actor that I generally enjoy watching. And it's interesting because here, like, he's fine, but and maybe this is just one of the curses of a story being told so quickly, is I mean, he's painted in kind of a white hat cowboy sort of way, where it's just, he's just kind of a great guy. And to have such a fantastic villain in Leslie Banks' Count Zaroff, I kind of would love to have seen a little bit more in Bob as far as what Joel McCrea gave him, but I don't know if I can fault that on Joel himself or just the way that the script crafted that character.
Yeah, it's pretty one-dimensional. Can I take a brief sidebar on Joel McCrea?
Please.
I haven't seen many of Joel McCrea's movies, but as I scroll, I feel like it's important that we note that after this movie, he goes on to do Barbary Coast, Adventure in Manhattan, Stay With Me, Union Pacific, that doesn't really count. Stay With Me, Palm Beach Story, Buffalo Bill, The Virginian, south of St. Louis, Colorado Territory. I'm still going. Hollywood Story, the San Francisco Story, Black Horse Canyon, that's another place, Wichita, the Oklahoman, the first Texan, has the gunfight at Dodge City. Yeah. All of the other ones that are like allusions to places, Mustang Country, Ride the High Country. What is going on with Joel McCrea and place movies? That's outstanding.
That's pretty funny. I don't know if I would have pulled that as an element of his career, but as you go through the list, there are quite a number of films related to places. Yeah. Very funny. Very funny.
Anyway, I like Joel McCrea. I haven't seen a lot of them, as I mentioned, but I like him in this movie. I have seen The Oklahoman because I had to, and
being from Oklahoma, is that requirement?
Yeah, my dad made sure that happened. Some of the other like gunfighty ones, but I don't have great memories of them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm not a Joel McCrea Americana expert.
What about Fay Wray? Have you seen much of her? I feel like I've only seen this in King Kong. Oh, and The Four Feathers. I did see the original Four Feathers.
I did not see that. Definitely King Kong. She ended up doing a lot of TV late in her career, which I'm sure I've seen some of those.
Did you watch the 30s version, Mystery of the Wax Museum for Sitting in the Dark, or was that just the later Vincent Price version?
It was Vincent Price.
Okay, so you didn't see.
It does make me want to go back, though, after I saw that she was in that.
Yeah.
Especially the 30s version. I mean, I'll bet it's even more celebratory of the grotesqueries of the concept than Vincent Price. I haven't seen a lot of Fay Wray, but I feel like I know her so well, and I have such a fond memory of her as the damsel in distress in King Kong.
Yeah.
But man, she's got a lot of credits.
She's got a lot of credits, and I just feel like she's somebody who I just haven't seen much of. And I feel like I largely only know her because of King Kong, which really isn't fair. I should check out some more of her stuff.
Well, I smell another series coming up.
There you go. And Leslie Banks is another one who, like, I don't feel like... I mean, he was in The Man Who Knew Too Much, the 1934 version of that Hitchcock did, along with Jamaica Inn, another Hitchcock film, but not as many films in his career, and I've seen only this and the two Hitchcocks.
Yeah. I'm in the same boat. What's going on? And what's funny is, how well I feel like I have such a strong memory of these people, and I have not seen enough of them.
Yeah. Oh, he was in Olivier's Henry V. I have seen that one. He played Chorus in that film.
Oh. I don't remember him.
Yeah. Well, interesting. Oh, you know what? And I did find out that he did actually have a Russian coach come to make sure that he spoke his Russian in the film properly. So there you go. It is real Russian.
Well, it might be fake words spoken with an authentic accent. There's a lot we don't know, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That Russian coach may be out to troll him.
Yeah. So this film definitely feels of the era as far as kind of like the 30s adventure films, especially like what you get with King Kong, but also like Max Steiner's score, who also scored King Kong. Like, I feel like this period really started crafting some really strong film scores that felt very much like full adventure. Like the score here, even when Count Zaroff plays the score on the piano later in the film, I'm like, oh my God, the score has become diegetic music. But it's still played. Like I enjoyed, like they crafted something that actually felt very adventuresome, and it really kind of emphasized the story.
I think it's funny that it does. It becomes diegetic music, and that is the musical equivalent of using the name of the movie in the script, which this movie also does.
Which it does.
And you're right. I actually have less of a problem with it than I do the movie title.
But the movie title in this film, it feels like something that somebody would end up saying. Like, I don't know. I guess I didn't end up having a problem with it because it just is like the whole concept of like, I want to hunt the most dangerous game. Like it comes out as something that you could potentially hear someone say. It didn't feel forced, I guess.
Okay.
You found it forced.
Here's my problem. Ideologically speaking, I'm on the record as really having a distaste for this. And the last couple that we've done, I've actually found an excuse, a way to rationalize that it's okay. And I'm feeling like my wits are stretched. Like personally, I can't let too many of these through, even though probably this one's okay. I just have to say, the line must be drawn here and no further.
The film was released as The Hounds of Zaroff in England, and in 1938...
See, now that's not a bad title for an adventure.
In 1938, they reissued it and called it Skull Island, which is like now suddenly, like, are we crossing
problematic
the streams with everything? But yeah, so I'm curious about like The Hounds of Zaroff. I like The Most Dangerous Game better. I think it works better.
Okay, I like Hounds of Zaroff because it plays on the dogs, and the dogs don't get off well in this movie. Some of them, a couple of the dogs are treated poorly.
Yeah, and then you feel bad for that one who wants to make it up the slope. All the others did. But
I know,
you just can't.
And you have the one dog. That's the dog during gym class who couldn't climb a rope.
I felt bad for that dog.
I did too. I felt terrible for the dog.
Give him another shot.
You know that dog's not going to make it. Like Zaroff's keeping score, and he's getting rid of the weakest links.
Yeah.
That dog got in the way of other potentially stronger dogs. Because the dog like clogged up that little channel.
Yeah, right. Couldn't do it. But it's interesting because as I was talking about the outtakes of the trophy room, there was that stuffed figure of a person who died like climbing a tree or whatever, who had the two dogs stuffed with him, demonstrating them kind of pursuing him. But it does make me wonder, did they die, or did Zaroff say, you know what, you're better off being stuffed as part of my display, as great as you were for catching this guy? Like, what is the thinking with that? Does that mean he killed like two prize hunting dogs just because they would work better in a stuffed situation?
Oh, a stuffed situation, Andy. Yeah, I think he got into a stuffed situation.
That's terrible.
It is terrible, but so much better for the character. Like, of course Zaroff would do that.
I did wonder about this island, because this island, as we demonstrate, we have Joel McCrea and Fay Wray. They climb up to the top of what they think is a peak, leading to more space beyond to flee, only to see that that's the ocean on the other side. And you get a sense that this is a pretty small island, and yet it has a massive, massive river and waterfall running down it. It's like,
yes,
where is all the water coming from? Like, it's only going to do that like after heavy rains. Like, you're not going to get heavy waterfalls and rivers like this that can sustain on a little
just
island.
From erosion, that river. I think the island is not long for the ocean. Like, it just doesn't. It feels like it's going to erode into the sea.
Yeah, right. It's just, that was something I was like, wow, this is an island that has a serious, like, flowing, like, quickly flowing river and waterfall.
Yeah. Yeah, that was good. I like that. I mean, the setting is great. I think, repurposing the sets from King Kong, whatever. I had a blast. The jungles were great. And there is a sequence where they're running through the jungle and the camera is like so we've got Fay Wray. We're on Fay Wray while she's running away, and the camera's following her. And then it turns around, and we're following the follow cam is like running headlong into leaves, and I loved that. I loved that shot. That was so great.
Yeah.
And I almost feel like it wasn't paid off well enough because that camera was a POV of Zaroff in chase, and I really like the idea of Zaroff being so fixated on this that he was looking at the leaves and not looking down and like trips. I wanted him to like fall over, but he was too savvy.
Yeah, that was an interesting shot. It really stood out to me too, because I was like excited by the fact that we're actually getting a POV moving forward, running through jungle and pushing the leaves out of the way. And like getting a shot like that seemed like we were doing something pretty interesting at the time. Henry W. Gerard was the DP, and I didn't check, but did he also shoot King Kong? I'm kind of guessing because it seems like a lot of the same people. Yeah, he did. So, yeah, it's just pretty interesting that it definitely felt very energetic in the way that they were crafting the camera work.
Yeah. That's interesting. There'd be an interesting series to do. You know, we've done movies and their remakes. I think it would be fun to do set duplicated movies like this and King Kong and look at which parts of the set were aped. I wonder how many movies there are like that. Probably in the 30s and between the 30s and 50s, a lot.
Well, we talked about that in our member bonus series when we were talking about Little Shop of Horrors and Bucket of Blood
Corman stuff,
as far as Roger
sure.
Corman using the same sets there. And certainly several other sets likely were repeated on some of the other films that we've talked about. I know Corman is somebody who's done that quite a bit.
Interesting.
Well, I know not exactly the same film, but when we talked about Targets, Peter Bogdanovich's film that he did for Corman, in that film you have not Bela Lugosi, not Lon Chaney. Who is the actor, the old actor in that one? I'm totally just blanking. Anyway, it's Boris Karloff, who is watching footage from one of his older films, and that older film that he was in had been one that also had, like, its sets were used on two different Corman films. So,
Interesting.
Yeah. So, yeah, it definitely happens. Yeah.
Where does that put us?
I mean, it's an interesting film, and in the scope of, well, I guess, you know, just wrapping things up for this conversation, in the scope of people hunting people stories, like, I mean, how does it play? This is the first film that really featured that, and there have been a lot that have followed, and we'll be talking about a couple of them over the course of the series. We've talked about others on, like, the film board, like we talked about The Hunt over there. You know, I mean, how does this work as far as setting up this concept? And is the innate sense of this story something that people want to see repeated so often because of just something that we're innately drawn to this concept?
Yeah, I mean, it feels very much like we're innately drawn to this concept. It seems like the most brazen interpretation of this concept, because we're accustomed to, you know, people doing violence against each other in movies, and in that regard, like, you know, all of the slasher horror movies are people hunting people movies. The thing that makes this one interesting is its, you know, in spite of all the booze, is its sobriety in the concept. That this is a thing that exists for no other reason than the hunt. There's no basis in psychosis or delusion or ghost stories or anything else, just for the satisfaction of the hunt and minimizing fellow human beings to, in the sort of ideology of these movies, the mindless animal. And I think that is what makes these things compelling. The other movies that we talked about on Sitting in the Dark when we did this series, we did talk about The Hunt. We talked about Run, Sweetheart, Run and Get Duked. One of them funnier. Get Duked was more of a comedy, and it was about old people killing young people. And Run, Sweetheart, Run ended up being a real rug pull of a movie that had a fantastic setup and a broken back end. But both of those do a similar thing. For whatever reason, they're righting humanity by eliminating these sort of the otherness of these people, young people. And I don't think they end up doing as well as like The Hunt and this movie, because they have their purpose so indelibly scrawled on their sleeves. We're hunting you because we're hunting. We're not trying to get rid of a problem. We're not trying to do anything else. It's just what it is. We're hunting you because we wanna. And that's what makes these movies, I think, scary. I think this one does a great job at it.
Yeah, I think the draw to the fear of the idea it works really well. I'm curious because Bob is a hunter already, to the point where Zaroff wants him to stay and live on the island with him and hunt people too. Like that's his initial pitch. Like, let's do it together. You're the best hunter out there. And I've read all of your books and you're fantastic and we'll be chums and we'll hunt all these people. And then suddenly it shifts when Bob, again, white hat Bob is like, you can't hunt people. That's a horrible thing to do. But then it really does kind of play into this reflection of human nature as far as like this line. And there's even that great line early in the film. I was thinking of the inconsistency of civilization. The beast of the jungle killing just for his existence is called savage. The man killing just for sport is called civilized, right? You get this idea between civilization and savagery, and it really kind of starts questioning society as a construct and what it all means, and what are our primary, or not our primary, what are our primal urges as far as drawn to feed, and how has that expanded into something more, as we were talking about just the idea of trophy hunting and everything. Mm-hmm. And you get all of that, and you end up getting a much more psychological exploration of humans, especially because humans are so different than these other animals that are hunting just because they need the sustenance. Now it ties into our morals and ethical dilemmas versus survival instincts. And even to the point, we don't touch on it in quite so much in this film, but you're getting some social commentary as far as different groups of people feeling like that they might be better. You certainly see that more in something like The Hunt. I mean, I guess you get a little bit of it here. These are all Cossacks, and there is a sense that, they seem to be painted as feeling that they're better than other people. It's not as strongly painted in this film, but we certainly see that. And it'll be interesting to kind of explore over the course of this series.
I think that's the thing for me. It's that these movies are saying, there's another movie we didn't mention in the pre-show, The Purge, that civilization is performative, right? That's one of the things these movies are saying, is that being civilized is a performance that we put on for one another. And when we stop performing, what do we do? Right? That's the question. And these movies say, well, we do anything we want, and that includes killing each other because we're all animals. Right. It's just the kind of language we use to talk about it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's exactly where our country is headed right now.
So we're doing fine. We're doing fine.
Doing fine, yeah.
Not here at True Story, though. When we let down all of our barriers, we podcast about it.
That's right.
At a safe distance.
At a safe distance. Okay. All right. Well, I guess that's it. So we'll be right back. But first, our credits.
The next reel is a production of True Story FM, engineering by Andy Nelson, music by Efrat Shamir, Pietro Diero, Tico, Oriol Novella, and Eli Catlin. Andy usually finds the stats for the awards and numbers at d-numbers.com, boxofficemojo.com, imdb.com, and wikipedia.org. Find the show at truestory.fm, and if your podcast app allows ratings and reviews, please consider doing that for our show.
And this is me, correct?
Because it's what?
Merch.
Good, because I did membership.
Okay,
Good.
there we go.
All right.
Good evening, listeners. Let me tell you a tale of a hunt unlike any other. It was a crisp spring morning when I set out into the wilderness, armed not with a rifle, but with a keen eye for the most extraordinary quarry, rare and captivating designs from the realm of cinema. As I traversed the digital landscape, I stumbled upon a treasure trove, a virtual bazaar overflowing with unique and enchanting merchandise. It was none other than the Next Reel's podcast merch store at thenextreel.com/merch. And what a magnificent collection it was. From the visionary works of Akira Kurosawa, John Carpenter, Sergio Leone, and Kubrick, to the haunting Blood Moon Centennial Celebration from Messiah of Evil, each design was a masterpiece waiting to be worn or displayed. As I delved deeper, I discovered more hidden gems. The iconic streetcar from A Streetcar Named Desire, the inviting Smutty Nose Island from Weight of Water, and the mesmerizing and moldy stained glass from Relic, each one a testament to the artistry of filmmaking. But the hunt didn't end there. I found myself drawn to the whimsical charm of Spicoli's Surf School, or the Ridgemont High logo from Fast Times at Ridgemont High, the nostalgic allure of Kelly's Pet Store from Johnny Dangerously, and the geeky cool of Pac Tech from Real Genius. And let's not forget the ever-popular Rusty the European Tour from National Lampoon's European Vacation, a true classic that never goes out of style. But perhaps the greatest prize of all was the opportunity to wear the Next Reel's very own logo, a symbol of our shared passion for cinema and storytelling. And here's the best part, my fellow hunters. These designs are not just confined to t-shirts. You can have them emblazoned on hoodies, tank tops, hats, stickers, kids' t-shirts, mugs, crewneck sweatshirts, long-sleeve t-shirts, baseball t-shirts, phone cases, totes, pins, magnets, wall art, pillows, and even tapestries. So, my friends, I invite you to embark on your own hunt. Venture into the Next Reel's merch store at thenextreel.com/merch and discover the treasure that await you. With every purchase, you're not only adding a unique piece to your collection, but also supporting the show and helping us continue to bring you in-depth movie conversations every week. Trust me, it's a hunt you won't regret. It's a hunt you won't regret. Until next time, happy hunting.
I heard some Harrison Ford in there.
Oh, really?
Tapestries.
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 That's funny. Want to see the tapestries?
I want to see the tapestries. Okay.
Good stuff.
Sequels and remakes, Andy. This seems like a long segment.
Yeah. It's so big that there's a page on Wikipedia just called Adaptations of the Most Dangerous Game. Holy cow. I'm tempted to just plow through it all. This was the first one. And then, are you ready for this?
Go for it.
This is just film. 1945, A Game of Death. 1956, Run for the Sun. 1961, Bloodlust. 1966, The Naked Prey. 1968, Confessions of a Psycho Cat. 1972, The Suckers. 1972, The Woman Hunt. 1982, Turkey Shoot. 1987, Slave Girls from Beyond Infinity. 1987, Deadly Prey. 1993, Hard Target. 1994, Surviving the Game. 1997, The Pest. 2004, The Eliminator. 2006, Apocalypto. 2017, Never Leave Alive. 2019, Ready or Not. 2020, The Hunt. 2020, Tremors, Shrieker Island. 2021, Apex. 2022, a remake of The Most Dangerous Game. And also 2022, Death Hunt. That's just film. There's also radio adaptations, TV episode adaptations, not to mention all sorts of other like books, films, comic books, video games. It's crazy how popular the idea of people hunting people really is.
Amazing.
And we're going to be talking about a few more of those on our upcoming episodes. Should be fun.
So how did it do at awards season?
It did okay for itself. Pichel and Schoedsack had a very specific budget of $2019 $869 for this film, or just over $5 million in today's dollars. The movie opened September 16th, 1932, opposite Blonde Venus, and it did well for itself, going on to earn $443,000, or $10.2 million in today's dollars, more than doubling its costs. That lands the film with an adjusted profit per finished minute of $83.2 thousand, doing well for itself, regardless whether audience members were walking out or not.
So here's what we have to do right now. I'm going to say, so how to do at the box office? And then you're going to put that. And then you're going to take what I said, which was how to do at award season, and you're going to tell me the awards now. So,
Yes.
Yeah.
This will be great for our audience watching this on YouTube. Yeah. It did okay at the time. It's interesting. Awards at the time, the Oscars were around, but there weren't many film awards. But what's interesting, Pete, have you heard of Photoplay Magazine?
I have.
Photoplay Magazine.
I'm not a subscriber, but I've heard.
Right. It was established in 1911, and it lasted in various iterations until 1980. But its real peak was in the 20s and 30s. And actually, I don't think I knew this, but Photoplay established what is considered the first significant annual movie award. So before the Oscars, Photoplay was awarding their magazine Medal of Honor. They actually had a medallion produced by Tiffany's that they would award to different films. And they had the readers of the magazine would vote on it, and it would be awarded to the producer of the year's best film. The very first winner, 1920, is when they started this, was the film Humoresque. And by the time we got to this film, it was actually Cimarron that ended up winning that particular year. But the other interesting thing that the Photoplay magazine started doing in I think the very next year, 1921, they started awarding the Best Picture of the Month. And then the following year, they started awarding Best Performance of the Month. Well, as it turns out, this film did end up winning several of those. In October 1932, it won Best Picture of the Month and Best Performance of the Month for Leslie Banks. Look at that.
Best Picture of the Month.
Of the month. I know. So specific.
You've got to see every new release movie every month to do that award. I'm just trying to wrap my head how we could podcast about that.
I have a feeling that what they were probably doing is they were having readers of the magazine vote. And obviously the readers weren't watching every movie that came out every month, but they were probably voting on the ones that they ended up loving the most for any particular month.
And between every reader, there is probably a good swath of movies that are watched.
Yeah, especially because this magazine really was, especially at this time, the 20s and 30s, it was the film magazine that people were following. So, yeah.
Fascinating.
Really interesting.
Right.
Yeah. They stopped the awards for a while in 1939 because it was to a certain extent reflecting too much of their primarily female readership. So, yes.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Very
interesting.
Again, we're doing great.
Yeah.
Well, I thought this movie was great. I really enjoyed my time with it. It was fun. Is it, did it change the way I live my life forever? No, but did I really enjoy my time? I'm glad we watched it. This was a great film. It's one that I would love to see a restored version. I don't know if anyone has released that because the version that is on right now, you can stream it on Criterion and Max along with a number of other different places. It was pretty crummy looking. It was pretty like DVD quality sort of restoration. So I'm just checking to see. It looks like Flickr Alley did release it in a restored version in 2012. So along with Eureka Entertainment again in 2022, and it looks like a much nicer version. So if you want to check out a really pristine version, you might want to pick up one of the restored versions on DVD. All right.
Yeah, now we know. Well, I guess that's everything. So we'll be right back for our ratings. But first, here's the trailer for next week's movie, Ernest R. Dickerson's Surviving the Game.
Welcome, my dear listener. You have wandered into my domain, much like the unfortunate souls who wash ashore on my island. But fear not, I do not hunt you, unless, of course, you refuse this most generous invitation. You see, I have discovered something even more thrilling than the chase, something truly dangerous. The Next Reel family of film podcasts membership. Join us, and you shall receive early access to episodes, bonus content, and even the occasional mailing, all a token of my appreciation. You will have your own personal podcast feed free from the tiresome burden of ads, and if you dare, you may even witness the hunt firsthand. Access the live stream recording sessions and exclusive Discord channels where most dangerous film discussions unfold. But the greatest reward of all, the satisfaction of directly supporting the podcasts you love. A noble pursuit indeed. So, my dear listener, will you accept the challenge? Or shall I release the hounds? Visit truestory.fm/join before I must persuade you further.
Release him. Release the hounds. Do it.
Okay.
So funny. I'm surprised your throat made it through that.
Oh. I still sound disgusting.
I know. I thought for sure it was going to break up.
You don't have to say "I know" so fast.
I meant, oh.
I know.
Sorry. All right.
Letterboxd, Andy, what are we going to do? The Next Reel? No. Letterboxd.com/The Next Reel. That's where you can find our HQ page over on our favorite movie review service. What are you going to do? Where are you going to apportion your stars and hearts?
This was a really fun film, and I think it helped that it was so short. Like, it just feels like a tight adventure story. You know, you've got this paired with something like King Kong. I think back to back, that makes for a really fun sense of just kind of thrilling adventure movies to watch. This is one that I'm like, is it all the way up to 4 stars? I don't think it's really there. But I think 3.5 is where I'm going to sit. 3.5 and a heart. It could go up, but I think 3.5 is a fair place for a film like this. I had a great time with it.
I think we're in the same boat. I landed at 3 stars. Again, did it change the way I live my life forever? No. Did it make me want to watch more human hunting human movies? Sure, you bet.
What does that say about us?
It's bad. I enjoyed my time. I enjoyed the people, and I think it's a fun setup for a thought experiment that is appropriately dark and good for the era in which we live today.
Here. Well, that will average out to 3.25 and a heart, and it'll round up to 3.5 and a heart over on our Letterboxd account, which Pete said is at The Next Reel. You can find me there at Soda Creek Film. You can find Pete there at Pete Wright. So what did you think about The Most Dangerous Game? We'd love to hear your thoughts on this one. Hop into the Show Talk channel over in our Discord community, where we will be talking about the movie this week.
When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
Letterboxd giveth, Andrew.
As Letterboxd always doeth.
All right. Did you go high or low?
I didn't go either way. I just went with somebody who only has a heart. No stars.
What?
Doesn't
Is it
do
Demi
star ratings.
Adejuyigbe?
No, it isn't. It's Robert Franco, who had this to say. When I was little, my dad would tell this as a bonfire story. It was my favorite, and I'd make him tell it over and over again. To make a long story short, this has a special place in my heart. Oh, what I'd give to experience those memories again. That is just like a sentimental and sweet little review. I just thought it was very special.
You didn't read the last line. I'm writing this from prison. I've successfully hunted 18 humans. Love, Johnny.
You just took that dark. All right, what's yours?
This is a 3-star and a heart from Ely, who says, if you watch The Princess Bride and wished the whole movie was just the fire swamp and the pit of despair, then this movie is for you. It totally is. Nailed it.
So funny.
Thanks, Letterboxd.